G'day, Mel James here, James Buy Sell. This week we're talking or continuing on the price discussions. If you want to look for our market reports, just go to the top menu into the market section. But theory-wise, last week we covered, well, what is a price? We talked about emotion. We talked about matching emotions of buyers and sellers at a numerical number, even though one could easily have different values between the buyer and seller, but when they agreed emotionally on the same number, you had a price. So how do you get to that price? Let's say you're a buyer first up. Well, you've got a choice. You can give an offer or you can take a sticker price, for instance. You can take a sticker price when you go into Coles. You know, they put a price there and you take it, you pay it, you move on. You can give, and most people tend to, when they go to a used car yard, you at least try and give a slightly different number to what is being asked for. And obviously in property, it's the same. So as a buyer, you can give or take a price. But I'd rather just focus in on, if I could today, on selling, because I think that really shows the price and will help buyers as well. So to get to a price, well, you've got to put a price there. The law says that you have to state a price. You have to state what is called a statement of information price, SOI price. So what should that be? And let's remove the whole issue about underquoting. So let's say you're hoping for $5 million for your home, but you're completely open-minded. And so you've started talking to agents, and the majority of agents sort of subscribe to the old theory, quote them low, watch them go, quote them high, watch them die. And look, in strong markets, that's absolutely no problem at all, because there's plenty of room for error. If you don't quite get it right in the first week, well, there's always the second week with people coming through in the third week. And nobody really ever notices when there's so many buyers around. We are in completely the opposite market at the moment. So you really do need to get that asking price absolutely right. And the bell curve of demand and supply the bell curve of demand, meaning buyers coming through, meaning that the majority of them come through in the first week or second week of your campaign, meaning the engaged buyers come through in that time, and then there's just a gaggle, a very small amount come through in the third and fourth week. I know a few agents say, they just saw it at auction today. Well, that's a rarity. The majority of buyers see it immediately, it comes up on the internet, and therefore you need to have price right, because people make decisions on the PPPs, the position of the property, the type of the photo to give them a feeling about the property, and the actual asking price. So quote them low, watch them go. Let's get plenty of people interested in the property. Yeah, that's a good theory if you've got plenty of people interested in your property, if there's plenty of buyers. You can see our old mate there on the right, the volcano. The plan there is to build a groundswell of support and push one of the buyers up through the top and into some stratospheric number. But what happens if you're quoting low and you've only got one buyer? Well, how do you get them there? I mean, looking at the statement of information or the agent quotes at the moment, how many of those are dramatically exceeding the quote with just one buyer? And you can see that in expression of interest and off markets. I mean, most properties only have one buyer on them at the moment. So how do you get that groundswell of support? Well, you actually don't. So if you're quoting 4 to 4 or 5, and you've only got one buyer and you're hoping for 5, good luck, Charlie. That's all I can say. I don't think you'll get there. Now, if you're quoting 4, 5 to 5 and you've got 3 or 4 or 5 buyers and it's a great home, yeah, you've still got some chance. I mean, the market still has some strength. The other way of looking at it is, we see our old mate there on the left, loaner, one bidder auctions. Now, what's wrong with quoting 4, 5 to 5, or what's wrong with just quoting a single figure at 5? And I have had this discussion twice this week with agents. What is wrong with doing that? Saying, well, I want 5. And then trying to drag a buyer, kicking or screaming or willingly, whichever way, up to a number. I mean, it's honest, but it also gives a target figure. And so if you've only got one buyer, I think you've got a lot more chance of getting to 5 if you ask for 5 than you have if you ask for 4 to 4, 5 and then apologise or try and make up some BS excuse why, all the buyers have miraculously disappeared. So that's the difference in give or take, and it's really important to understand and be thinking about the quote. If traditionally you've got a property that's not going to have a lot of bidders, why would you be, in inverted commas, low quoting, under quoting, call it what you like, but let's get rid of the legality side of things, just look at the theory. Why would you quote low if you've only got one buyer? I mean, that's just lazy agent work, and it's not going to work, and it actually doesn't work. So my best advice in that situation would be thinking about telling the truth. Say what you want and see if you can get somebody there. In other words, put the bait out and see if you can hook them up, like our loaner on the left is trying to do. If you've got an A grader and your main aim is to sell, well then in that situation, let's be a little bit conservative on pricing, because the market has dipped 10%-ish, 5%-ish, 5 to 10 in that sort of range in the last 6 months. It's already done that. So you do need to be conservative if your main aim is to sell on your quote. And in that situation there, well, you've got every chance then of building some interest, because if I have a choice between one buyer and 4 buyers at the same number, I would always choose having 4 buyers, because the result will always be the same. Sorry, will always be better with 4 buyers. But if I've only got one buyer, then I'd much rather be asking a price that I want than giving a low price and then trying to drag them up. And that is the difference at the moment between give and take. You really should be thinking about your price. Similarly, if you're buying then, well, let's be thinking about what you're doing. Why do you have to take the price? In this market, you're more than likely the only buyer on the property. Now, not always. And if it's a good A grader and plenty of interest, okay, you're not the only buyer. But in a lot of expressions of interest, there is only one buyer. And why do you have to take that price? Sure, you may not buy the property if you don't, so you need to think through that, but you are allowed to give an offer, and you don't have to give an offer that even relates to the price that's been asked. You can give whatever offer you wish. Now, you may be knocked back. I think it's also good if we removed the expectation that a lot of agents, the reason a lot of agents also want to quote low is because they feel that their worth or will be judged on how much they exceed the price by, rather than what the actual price is. I mean, to be frank, I'd much rather ask 10 and get 9 than ask 8 and have 4 people push it to 8.5. Now, one is you've exceeded the price quote by 500,000. The other one, well, you're $1 million under. But, if I was the seller, I'd much rather have the 9, thank you. So these are the issues at the moment. I really do think that thinking about quoting, thinking about your pricing, thinking about different strategies, whether you're a buyer or seller in this market, is really important. Thanks for your time, Mel James.